Welcome back to the Free Wisdom Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Latif Wisdom. Malcolm couldn't make it out today. Yeah, it's tied up with some manufacturing. But without further ado, if you're watching this, from home, from wherever, from your car, you can see who I'm sitting with. As always, I think that most of the time I want to allow my guests to speak for themselves, let them tell you who they are. But I have to, open this with some type of red carpet, some type of homage, because I think that this person, I'll tell you from the day I met her, I think first it was my friend Christina. I think she linked us together. But the conversation that we had was to do a collaborative merch collection with 21 Savage. And at this time, I was a young designer coming from Stone Mountain. Probably didn't, I haven't, any design I've created, any endeavor I created from the business just hasn't, done something significant financially for me. I was still on my early grind. And this person linked me with 21 Savage, and not only that, just the being there at the concert and putting the merch up and seeing the other merch they were already equipped with. She allowed me to take the proceeds pretty much of the sellout of Wisdom t-shirts, 21 Savage t-shirts selling out as just a front, and just allowed me to add that to my business and push forward, as an independent designer. And that, I don't think she knew what that meant for me at that moment, because it was like the first time I had some money to play with, or a step towards that, to give me some type of direction and say, oh, this works and someone can see me. And if I just keep working and showing up, this can pay off in the most beautiful way. And, I think she gave me that first opportunity that proved that to me. And the sense of confidence that gave me, the sense of self, the sense of belief, and the years of all the friends and friends I've known from years that see me from day one to now, to be something bigger. And without further ado, I want to let you introduce yourself.
That was a great intro. I actually forgot that happened. Yeah. Kei Henderson, based here in Atlanta. Grew up here in Georgia. I won't say Atlanta, but the North. I've been in music for quite some time, probably 12 or 13 years or so. Grinding it, still in the trenches, as a manager, but then went on to found a label called Since the 80s, and then since then I've separated and actually started my own label management and publishing company called Third and Hayden. I'm happy to be here. I appreciate you. Appreciate the invite. Thank you for the long intro as well.
Yeah, of course. And it's plenty more. It's like, I'm pretty sure that life moves fast from your shoes, from the many things that you just mentioned and that you do and that you are. But I want to start slow and go back to the North Side, because I didn't know you was from the North Side. So
yeah, I'm from Lawrenceville.
Okay, how was that? How long did you go to high school there, middle school, elementary?
Yeah, I went to elementary between Roswell, Dunwoody, and then Norcross. Actually, in between there, I lived at Stone Mountain on what's the name of that street?
Was it?
No matter. I'll think of it later.
Panola Road. You got Main Street. You got it's not many over there, but it is a few.
It's gonna come to me at the end of this, and I'm like, that's where I stayed at. Yeah. Norcross is where I went to middle school, and then high school I lived in between Swanee and Lawrenceville. So I graduated from high school in Lawrenceville.
Okay.
A long time ago.
Yeah, and so, young Kei. What was young Kei doing? How was high school for you? Where were you at?
Yeah, young Kei was interesting because, as a young black queer person, my experience is very different from a lot of young queer people. Mm-hmm. Where I was out to my family, but I wasn't out to peers and friends in high school. So my mom knew I was gay. I came out at 8 years old. Mm-hmm. My grandmother's, my whole family knew, but in high school and school, no one knew. Okay. I'm sure they assumed, as I got older and started, becoming more into myself, being more masculine presenting. But high school was interesting because I was I could really only be half of myself, you know. But I played sports and was always into music. I was in a lot of music classes. was in marching band, but I couldn't really go to a lot of the events because I also played soccer. We would practice in the off season, so I did a lot of running and conditioning. So I didn't actually march in the band, but I played drums, tenor drums.
Okay.
Before that, I played like viola, violin, cello.
I think I played viola too.
Yeah.
Is that with a violin? Because I always remember it was like I couldn't pronounce it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I started with the cello, and then I did the viola, and then I went to percussion.
Yeah.
But yeah, like young Kei used to write a lot. Like he used to write a lot of poetry. That's how I would express myself. And when I would have a crush on a girl, I wouldn't actually be able to tell that girl. I would just write about it.
Okay.
Shit like that. So I guess in the sense of like personal life, I was hella shy, but very, very outgoing. Very active in high school. Yeah, it was interesting. In college, Kei was like a wild motherfucker. Like I was like academic probation my whole first year because it's like I could be free now. I'm like fucking with girls. I'm not going to class. I was wilding out.
I was just about to ask you, like, being who you are today and reflecting back to, being half of yourself in grade school, in high school, how did that, like, looking back, how does that feel? How did that feel then into what you know yourself to be now?
It's interesting because now as an adult, like, I can see, why I struggle with certain things, like vulnerability, like really deep shit like that.
Yeah.
Like, if you go to therapy, you understand that, like, being vulnerable is like a big part of growing and maturing. And so, back then, I didn't think of it as any big deal being in the closet to all my friends. Of course, it was like quite lonely at times, and also I'm an only child, so I was just always alone. But like now in adult life, I see those things. I'm like, oh, okay, that's why I move like this in, relationships or in business. Like I like being by myself. I isolate. People think that I'm not like super friendly because I don't want to go in big groups of people and shit like that. But it's like literally like that's what I'm used to. Yeah, where I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I had like a weird or bad childhood or anything. I think that it did shape who I am today for sure.
Because I think that vulnerability can feel like an intrusion, and it's like,
hell yeah.
And because I know that I'm from a Brooklyn household. We moved to Stone Mountain when I was young, but everybody in there was raised and rooted in Bed-Stuy in the 1980s, 90s. They were in the prom era, and so in our house, we're in Brooklyn, and so I think that I was always like a sensitive guy, always, just intuitive, sensitive artist, and I wanted to always treat people how I want to be treated, but it was like I had to push to become more than what I wanted to be. And so, like, likewise, like feeling like I found more solace or like peace to myself to go into my own mind and like draw more, like just do what I want to do, because I had a lot of siblings. So it's like we hang out, we having fun, and I'm extroverted in that way. Like I need to see my siblings, but I do need my time alone,
right? Because
I started to say, look, this is my family, but this is who I want to be. And I had that sense of a young kid, and just it kept showing up for myself. And I relate to that space of vulnerability, because it does feel like, I'm older now and I'm like close to my siblings. All my siblings 30, 40, I'm 27, so they already had a leap on me, and families, and their nephews are like my brothers.
Right.
So, to this day, I'm like really close with one of my sisters, and sometimes it's hard to even be vulnerable, knowing that we already have a vulnerable relationship.
Right.
It is intrusion, and you gotta like realize, and so hearing that is just affirming to me to know, like, it's a continuous thing.
Right.
But pivoting. Here you are in college. Where's your mind state now in college? How I know you wild right now. Like, what's the vibes like? What's the mind state like? What are you into?
Yeah, I always grew up like just being really into music and into hip hop and R&B, and obviously into writing. I went to school with the intention of like I wanted to start a music magazine. Like I wanted to be on some like Flavor or like Love and Basketball, where she worked at the magazine type shit. Like I thought I was gonna found my own magazine, like Vibe or Source and shit like that. So I was always in a way kind of working towards that. So like I ran the recording studio at my school. I did parties at school for like all the black students because it was a very limited number of us.
Yeah.
With my friends, of course, in school.
And what college is this too, by the way?
This is Elon University.
Elon?
Yeah.
Where's that at?
North Carolina. It's a hella small school.
Yeah.
It's a PWI. It's not a HBCU.
Yeah.
I still regret not going to Howard. I'm gonna keep it a buck.
Yeah.
But it was interesting, just coming into myself and getting closer to like, adulthood, if you will. But I had a good time. I had a really good time in college, and my mindset was not so long term. I don't think I've ever been like a super long term thinker. I'm kind of like a live for the current moment person, and I think I was like that in college too. I was just, just making it through, trying to graduate because I didn't want to disappoint my mom.
Yeah.
But I always knew that I wanted to move to New York. Like it was like no matter what, at some point I'm moving to New York because even as a child I would say I want to grow up in New York, and never having been there until I was like 18.
Yeah.
And my best friend in college, he was from like Southside Jamaica, Queens, so we, got really close. And eventually I landed some internships in New York, and I stayed at his family's home in Queens, and that was like my first introduction to living in New York. So that
what did you intern for?
I interned for the Source magazine and Complex magazine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and this is before smartphones, so like, I would get on the train and had that little map in my pocket, just like to make sure I was on the right
track. Yeah. New York
but
trains
I ain't let nobody see me looking at the map.
Because New York trains get easy after a while. You're like, okay, it's common sense. I get it.
Yeah, it's common sense once you take a look at it. You're like, oh, this is duh.
And if you rode the MARTA before, like MARTA is not obviously
not
nowhere near, but it'll give you like the blueprint. Like, okay, I get it, and then you'll just pick up. Yeah. But you at Complex, it's crazy because I think like it's a similar trajectory. Like for me, like I was into blogging at first, which is like a magazine, and also I was just into mimicking what my favorite brands did with ads, and I was like, I can do that. And so it kind of got me to that space. And so places like Complex, I ventured to back in 2017. And this is just give them a presentation of what wisdom was at the time. Whether they all took it, whether they liked it or not, to give us tours. But that was like a dream of mine, kind of, just like a like. How was that experience, at Source and at Complex?
You know what? It was interesting. The Source was fun because this was the time of like Dave Mays and Benzino. Like they would be in the office on a weekly basis, and I'd be like, "Yo,
Source,
these niggas like really run this shit." And then Groovy Lou, who is a pretty well-known stylist at the time, was like the fashion director, fashion editor of Liani. It's like all these names of people that like I didn't know at the time, but I know now like how integral they were in the like culture, like, not just like fashion, but like in music too. Like a lot of them were styling like Hype Williams videos and like doing like really crazy projects on the
BTS,
side, like, working at the Source. And I was working with these people, so it was interesting in that way on the Source side. And then Complex was very interesting because, I didn't get a lot of like interface with it. Like I didn't really leave that experience having learned anything. I was just kind of soaking up the perks. Like I would get to go to the parties and I would hang out with D and Ricky at their events, and we would do G-Shock stuff and like like all these brands was like lit. I would just be in the building, but I didn't really learn anything. I think I learned the most from the Source because it was more black people.
And what year is this?
2005.
So that is before smartphones and everything. So, I think that part is interesting.
17 years ago.
Yeah, it's trippy to know, like, anything with 2000 on it, it's over 20 years ago. But, like, before iPhones and, like, before social media, that's interesting to me because it's like these people were working with Hype Williams doing styling on sets that people look at to this day and like, it's the most classic video of all time. Right. But, social media allowed now those people to get their just due almost, or at least to tap into who wants to know what they're doing. Right. And, and just from your point of view, is that like from that perspective back then, is it better now? Or was that like a better feeling of like, I didn't know you did that, and now I'm more so intrigued by you, or having this, this ability to create your own audience so easily?
Is it better, like, just not having access to the social media back then?
Yeah.
I think in a way, yeah. Like, the grind was just different back then. Like, I got my internship from, like, looking in the front of the magazine, using my finger to find the human resources person, and then I found an email address. That's how I had to get the internship. Yeah. And then I had to call to follow up.
Yeah.
It's like, because we wasn't like... the technology, we were obviously using emails, but it wasn't like our main source of communicating like that. Still like phones, you know what I'm saying? So, knowing that those people that I worked with or worked under or interned for had achieved all of these massive things. Now looking back at it, I'm like, yo, they had to put in that work to get to that.
Yeah,
person.
they did.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's sitting outside of somebody's office until you run into them to hand them a resume. Like, that kind of shit is real.
Yeah.
Which is why, I'll never regret being born in the 80s, like the late 80s. Because it's like I've seen, literally, we're the first generation to have email addresses. Type shit,
Oh, yeah. As he goes
so, like, I've
back.
seen the pre, and now I've seen the during, and I'm going to see the post of, like, how social media has affected culture.
Yeah, because it's like that energy right there to know, like, I can't go follow this person and just like more pictures and keep saying, hey, hire me, or whatever.
Right.
Like, not without leaving my seat,
No, we had to get outside.
You had to get outside and move, because even like today, like, even if you reach out to, like, I reach out to animation studios, but if I send something and then I don't hear something in a month, I'm gonna send it again. But people forget you have to send that again. You might have to. I go to the building, and I know it's like, to me, I feel in my head like, are they gonna understand this? You know what I'm saying?
No, but you old school in that way. That's why I think I've always connected with you and fucked with you, because you're old school. Like, you're gonna show up to the spot.
Yeah.
You are very good at, like, just direct communication and creating a genuine relationship with people. And the internet has, in some ways, hindered a lot of young people in how they communicate and how they relate to one another, because they just thinking, well, I'm gonna just tweet them, I'm gonna send them a DM, blah blah blah, whoop, and then they don't have no interpersonal skills.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think, like, the way you move, like, you being real old school, walking through urban, wearing your shit, and the person's buying the shirt off your back, like, that's old school shit.
Yeah.
That's stuff how, like, Dapper Dan used to, like, really get his brand going.
Yeah, like, actually being there, because the moment being created while you're walking in there.
And because it's gonna beat being outside.
Yeah, and I agree. Like, over time, because that's my thing even now. Because if you're sending, I think it's a heavy perspective on both sides. Like, if you're just sending a tweet to a tweet or a DM to a DM, you could be thinking anything because how you were raised and what you expect, and they could be thinking anything because of how their day goes on a daily basis, and it's already a miscommunication. Right. So now it's like, and so the only way to get through that is to be there,
right.
And so I think I gained that from probably I have to probably go back to my Bed-Stuy household, like, that's how my family was. That's how, but I feel like I've gained that through communication, through some type of mentors throughout my way that I can't even remember to this day. But I know I've heard that, like, be there. Don't just send that. Go be there. And maybe it's like, this dude was talking to 4 of my friends, and we, 4 of them are like, 3 of them not listening, I'm listening, and it's like he's saying something, but we all like, whatever, man. He like, how old is he? Like, man, listening, we're young, doing whatever we want to do. But I've always been like, nah. It's strange because I've always kept a keen ear to what I needed to hear, even if I wasn't listening. If that makes sense. It was, and I say that in the sense of, like, people have told me things like, hey, watch you, like, look at me side on, like, watch who you hang around because you don't know who you're going to become. And in the moment, you just like, okay,
right.
Like, you don't hear it, went over my head. I'm probably not going to follow the advice, but I heard it. Something told me that's some real advice. And I've always kept those. Like, it always kept ringing, like, remember he said that. Remember she said that. And I've always, like, went back into that little Rolodex to look at what was given to me and how it impacted my life. And I honestly don't know. I can't tell you how that is, like, why I did that, why it's set up that way. It's just always been a reoccurring thing.
Yeah.
And those things help me get to figuring things out, you know. And so here we are, so what year did you graduate from college?
Oh, man, you got to age me. What year was that? 2006?
That's 06.
So a year after my internship, 06.
All right. Yep. So it's a year after those. That's on your belt, and now it's 06.
And then I moved back to Georgia from school, of course, because going straight to New York was just not going to be financially feasible. After all those loans, my mom, that was like right after the recession, so it was like just a hard time. So I moved back to Atlanta and like started working at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Yeah. Shit was ass. Yeah. You gotta do something, like, you gotta figure it out. I just watched my sister, she's an actress, and she put me on Snowfall, and the dude who's like, I think the best friend right now in the show,
I don't know the characters yet. I gotta look at it. But before he got that role, he
was
was
the first time checking out Snowfall?
Yeah.
Oh, that show's fire.
It's kind of hard. I was watching the LSD episode.
Okay, yeah.
So the dude who's on the show now, before that he was a janitor, like right before this role. And then you got Angus Cloud from Euphoria. Before he got that role, he was a waiter.
He was a waiter, right?
It's like you gotta
brunch spot, right?
Yeah, you gotta figure it out, but still add to it. Like when you meant for something, I think you're gonna
get there.
Yeah, it's gonna get there. So it doesn't matter if you got to sustain yourself, have some sustenance in the moment, so you're not tripping yourself out and just hungry artist all the time. Like it's important.
There's a difference between hungry and starving.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of starving artists out there. A lot of young people that are like in creative mode all the time. They want to be artists full time, but then they don't want to go get no job, and so that's why you starving.
Mm-hmm.
You're not even trying to feed yourself. You're waiting to get fed.
Yeah. And it's stuck to the dream.
You can be hungry and not, starving.
Yeah. And that was challenging for me at a young age, right? I always be like, no, I gotta follow my dreams. So
all of us been like that.
But it's it, right?
Who wants to work?
Yeah.
For somebody else.
But this funny thing is, in that process, I've always had a job, always had some type of something. But what happens to me in the past, I was young, 17, whatever. The manager's like, yo, your brand's doing good. You gotta, if you need to take off time,
just let me know.
It's always every single time. And I was like,
because when people see you work, like you got to meet people halfway.
Mm-hmm.
Not just people. You got to meet God halfway. You got to meet your ancestors halfway. Your parents. Like it's one thing to chase your dreams, and that's cool. Everybody deserves to do that, especially Black folks.
Yeah.
But also you just got to meet people halfway. You know what I'm saying? And when they see you put in the effort, you just be surprised at how much support you get from the other end, from your job, from your parents, from family. Like, oh, I see Latif is working really hard. Let's give him some extra money, or whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? Or let's help him with this flight to so and so. It don't matter what it is, but when people see you putting in that effort, they want to match that.
Yeah, because kind of the starving perspective is, you could say, linked to egoic perspective. Like, I want it my way, and it's like life doesn't work like that. Because the moment you say I want it my way, but I have to accept how things are, is the moment you get it. Because the universe responds. It's like, I just wanted you to see that, because where you're going, you need that. Because when you get into these doors, you can't come in there with that. They ain't gonna want you to. They're not gonna want to help you. Not gonna be. It's no communication. So it's like knowing that, and like back to that, as a young man, that's something like that came innate. Like, I know we on this train. I know we ain't got much money, but look, whoever's around me, we got T-shirts. Like you can all sell them through me. We don't gotta. Hey, I ain't got no money to get to the next thing we gotta do this week. Like, yes, we can get the money. If you don't want that job, here is a job. Right. Like, it's somehow figuring out, even as an artist, whoever's listening, like, if you don't even want to get that job, how can you make some consistent income, like, through your dream? Like, if you're a fashion designer and you're just trying to get it out and you're paying so much money creating, why don't you take what your fashion brand is selling and sell that? So if that is marketing, do marketing campaigns for other companies. Monetize yourself, so then you can sustain where you're going. And then you might like marketing better. You might be like, oh, this is more comfortable. I'm getting more money. Right. I get my ideas out. I actually didn't really I was spending so much in fashion, Right. So, that's important, but that's a journey,
It's all a journey. It's fun. If you let it be.
Yeah, if you respect it, yeah. And so, it's 2006. What is your next move from here? Where are you at, and what's your mind on?
Yeah, 2006, I moved back. Obviously, I didn't want to live in Swanee, so I was trying to move out ASAP.
Yeah.
So I could move to the city.
Yeah.
Met my best friend basically a month after I graduated, Kim. And we linked up and, found we had a lot in common. So we started this company, Lavish Life Social Club, where we eventually met another friend through a mutual by the name of Dre, Dre White. And we started this company and we just started blogging and eventually started throwing parties and collaborating with like Fadia Cater on her events and doing our own events and doing shows and doing merch, because obviously Kim is very into merchandise and whatnot. So that's like 2006 through 2009. But along the way, I'm like getting closer to wanting to work more in music. Eventually, an artist comes up to me by the name of Grip Plies. May he rest in peace. And he's like, yo, I think this is at one of my parties. Like, yo, these are the kind of people that I want to buy my music or come to my shows, or wear my merch. Can you manage me? And I was like, okay, yeah, let's talk about it. And at the time, I had no full intention on being a manager. That's never what I set out to be. I was really heavy into writing and blogging. I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
But then after interning at Complex, and the Source, I realized that it wasn't going to be what my end all be all in terms of being a writer.
Yeah.
So I was just like, they're not really making the kind of money that I want to make one day.
Yeah.
And because I studied people like Diddy like my whole life, like as a child.
Yeah.
I knew what a music manager was, or I knew what it was to be a music executive. I just didn't know that I wanted to do it yet until somebody asked me. So I started and by this time I think I was fired from Enterprise. And maybe working at Career Builder by that point. I was doing sales, another ass job. I started interning at recording studios, Mind's Eye Creative. They printed flyers, posters, and he had a studio in there. So I ran the studio, and every artist that I started to manage could use the studio. Yep. So Fat Kid's Brother would come through, Saya would come through, Mom's FP, Grip, of course. And then just a lot of the young creatives in the city just started, coming to me for studio time. And then I started interning for Big Cat Records, which is, at the time, had Gucci Mane. Yep. So I would put up, Gucci posters, pass out CDs. I was literally doing anything and everything to just get into the music scene.
Yeah.
Without having, an official
boot camp almost.
job. Yeah.
Yeah. Interning.
Yeah, I was literally just doing whatever, not getting paid shit, just networking and meeting a lot of people. And then I started building a relationship with Coach K, and a lot of things just started to kind of matriculate and kind of grow along the way. But I wasn't making no bread. So come 2010, I'm living in this apartment. It's in Kim's name. I get evicted from that joint, and then I get in a car accident. Matter of fact, 2000. Yeah, it was June or May 2010.
It's that moment.
That's that moment.
It'd be that moment. It's crazy how that's consistent with a lot of stories.
Yeah.
But continue. I'm listening.
This was the moment. So I get in this car accident. I'm already having been evicted. My mom had to come save me, bail me out of jail twice, all in the span of 2006 to 2010. So in 4 years, I had been arrested twice. Got evicted from 2 apartments actually. And then I got in this car accident. And I'm fuck. I don't need another thing stressing my mom out.
Right.
But on the bright side, they gave me a check for 5 bands, and that was to total the car and go get a new car. I was I'm not getting a new car. I'm going to New York.
Yeah.
So
it'd be that moment.
That's that. I swear on everything. This story never changes. Any interview, if you ever watch one of my interviews, and they ask this story is consistent. So it might have been 4,000, it might have been 5,000. That part I don't remember. Yeah. But I gave half to my mom. I kept the other half, and the lady that hired me for my internship at Complex was still the HR person. I looked in the front of the magazine. I was bet she's still there. So I reached out. I sent her an email hey, just wondering if you have any entry opportunities. It could be whatever. I don't care. She's oh, that's so funny. Our assistant to the CEO just put in her 2 weeks yesterday.
Tommy.
I wish I could find that email. Actually, I find that.
Yeah, and that's one right there. You framed that.
Boy, I sent them my updated resume, which had a couple little, some of my events and some of the writing I was doing on the side. But mind you, this is on the business side. This isn't even on the editorial side. So this was going to be assisting the CEO, vice president of sales, and the boring side. I didn't give a fuck. I was fuck that. I was I can be up there ASAP. So she called me up there for an interview. I think I went up there on a Wednesday, interviewed Thursday, came back home Friday. Got the job that next Monday, and then by that next week I was living in New York. So I went up there with 2 suitcases. I was fuck it, I don't have no family in New York. I had my home with my best friend from college because his family. Okay, yeah. So they let me stay with them for a couple of days, and then by coincidence Corey Davis from City of Ink was also living up there. So I stayed with him on his couch. And that first day I got there, it was oh, I'm supposed to be here. Yeah, I
mean, everything is literally laying out.
Yeah, alignment.
Yeah, it's insane just hearing these stories because, from you standing there, it's just your life. Like you say, it could be fun, it could be scary, whatever.
Yeah.
But in your shoes, these things, looking back, zooming out, it's like, oh, this was meant.
Everything
Because
that
it's
happened
like
to me, yeah.
you can't roll the dice for that. It's just, it is what it is. It laid how it laid. And those moments, what's the feelings of the being evicted, the car accident? Where you're at right now? Is that what helped you? And more so, I wouldn't say what helped you or anything. Being able to say, look, if you got any positions open, I'm willing. Did you have that before? Did you have that willingness to hustle and do things you didn't like to get where you needed to be?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I come from a very humble background. Just because I grew up in the suburbs, it wasn't shit wasn't sweet all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we were, struggling to figure out how to eat every day, but there were times where, we just my mom had to figure it out, and I watched my mom figure it out my whole fucking life. And hustle, working 2 jobs, putting herself through school.
Mm-hmm.
My mom now has a master's degree. When I was born, she had just graduated high school.
That's like magic. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's almost witnessing magic as a child. That means whatever you're gonna do is beyond that.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
my mom had 9 kids and always kept us all dressed, fed, good.
Mm-hmm.
So
Never wanted for nothing.
Yeah, so I can't. When I'm stuck, it has to be a way. It's no way, and it's beautiful. It's like magic, literally.
No, it literally is like magic.
Yeah.
So I always had that hustle. I knew though at that time when I was like, yo, I'll do anything. I knew that my chances were going to be short because I just had so many to get it right. And this was in 2010. I was 25. I wasn't young as fuck.
Oh yeah, I was 16. That's when I started Wisdom.
Yeah,
2010. That's crazy. It's crazy.
So I knew it was I can't continue to rely on the fallback because my parents was always my fallback. And like I said, the recession was hitting.
Yep.
My mom had been laid off. My dad had been laid off, both from companies they worked at for 18 years.
Oh, this was a week because I was in school during recession, so it went over my head because I didn't have no financial obligations.
Right.
But yeah.
So mine was starting to kick in.
Yeah.
The financial obligations, and so I knew if I didn't get it together in that moment, I just was never gonna get it together, and so I was willing to do whatever it took to get myself together. And so when I got to New York, things started going really great, and I became the plug for Atlanta creatives when it comes to comics because I was able to just walk over to the editorial side yo, my homie Trinidad James has this song. Yo, there's this kid Phil out of Atlanta. Yo, 2-9, I managed them. We going on the side. It was just all of these things that I was able to bring the editorial side that actually made Complex look super cool because they were up on all of what was going on in Atlanta. Yeah, super early.
See, that's but that enabled, that pretty much gives a platform for one a round of applause because without you being there, there's no there's no connection to Complex in Atlanta.
No, I never pat my back on myself on the back for that sort of thing, but I was the reason why a lot of platform was created for Atlanta creatives, especially the underground scene because that's near and dear to me because I was a part of the underground. I was the reason that they could get in contact, you know what I'm saying? And that spread too, because I was, developing relationships with Two Dope Boys and the Fader. I was actually gonna leave Complex at one point and go work at the Fader, but I never did that.
Okay.
But I just became just the person that people could come to.
I think just looking outside in, the thing that is divine, which is probably the reason why things are aligning, is because if you look at it, you are doing things for others more than yourself. The studio space to the Complex thing. It's giving what that's doing for Trinidad, what that's doing for 2-9, it's changing their life. It's one. It's just hey, do this, and because I'm key. I'm trying to create something completely different over here, but right now here, take this. And it's changing people's lives, and all that is almost air into the balloon of what you are, and it's just growing.
Right, so thank you for that. I realized probably not that long ago that's just what my purpose is. Is being a helper of creatives and a helper of people. I'm a creative myself, but I know that I'm not trying to survive off of my creativity.
Okay.
I could do.
That's a good place to be.
Other things. Yeah. But some creatives for a lot of people that might be all they have. or that's their way out of their situation, or if that's all they know. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I've just always had this mindset of like, no matter what, I was going to be good, no matter what I was doing. So let me just help some people, get to where they want to go.
Yeah, because being in that space to do the journey on your creative journey without relying on it financially, it gives a lot of breathing room. Like unfortunately, being in that position where that's all you have, it is like it's harder because you're trying to make money off of pretty much your essence. Right. Which is like, it's challenging. And because how to make money, you have to structure into a box almost and make it work. Versus like art is not, it's just like a splat of paint. Yeah, it's just whatever it came out to be. And so that could be challenging that's a testament to every artist in the music industry that spoke up and was like, the industry is against our actual voice, years and years. So that's proof right there. But
it's hard, I think, for artists like being a creative, like consistently working from survival mode is not fun at all.
No.
Like when you have to work to pay your bills, like when you have to create to pay your bills, that's fucking hard as hell.
Yeah. And it'll tell you who you are as well. Like it'll tell you, that's why, I think that I've dabbled into that. Pay my bills off of that. But that's why, design has always been my more of my love for me, because it's like all those things that you mentioned wrapped in one. It's my creativity, but it's also helping the next person, because they look at that logo or that flyer or that whatever, content, and it's like, this is exactly how I see my brand being. And that breath of air pushes them to be better and content and happy with what they're creating. And me to say, I'm glad I got to do that. I got to be a part of that, because that is creativity, just being there in that room.
Yes.
And so that's helped me along my journey to be able to create, wealth off of my art without feeling like I got to meet this, I got to put this out just to meet that. And it helped it kind of ease and balance itself out. And then now being able to, find the thing I love, which is cartooning, animation, like those things, when you jump into those fields, the money's different. Most likely, I haven't ventured in over there yet, but to me, I would do that for free.
Right.
Like just writing for a show, collecting the toys, doing the voiceovers, like bringing my friends. We do the whole season together. Like that's fun. That's like, and I can really be there. Thinking about like we talked about Snowfall. The actor, the main character. Watching him do the LSD episode, it just the way he chose scenes made me go, acting. I can, it's a job, and I can do it. I like it. My sister, like I said, is an actress, and she said, do this, be this guy, and then I'll do it, and then she'll teach me, like, see, that's why you got to go to that place, and learning that place is really just being grounded as an individual, and then using like things you've seen throughout your life. Like if you said, this is you, and this is your friend, and he has cancer, go, and it's like, if you fidget with your hands when you're nervous, you can implement those things. Like, be there. Right. Let the emotion, like, come through. And so, like, things like that, fun. Like, those are you,
Right.
And I would do those things for free. And I'm starting to learn that now,
Yeah.
Like, and so.
All of what the journey is like, is using one lesson or one experience to get to the next one. One lesson and experience to get to the next one. Like, that's literally what the journey is. So even like through just being an executive, learning my experiences and how, like, just navigating that world of being a manager or being a label executive, working with one artist has led to me to being with, whatever successful artist. Like, without the ones that happened prior, I couldn't even help the next one. You know what I'm saying? So all of those, you have to welcome all experiences with like open arms, even in the moment when it seems really tough. Especially when you're in survival mode, like when it's the worst, that breakthrough is on the way.
Like those, and can you speak to those moments when you're like, maybe strapped for cash, maybe you've been grinding for 10 years, maybe 11, and you get a moment where it's like, hey, bro, can you do this design for me? But it's from the person you've always wanted to work with for years. But you're like, I can't, I got to get paid. And now like, this can hurt. like how I'm about to, communicate to this person I need to get paid can potentially burn the bridge because he might not have the budget. He might. It's so many thoughts as a creative you just like panicking about. And can you speak to that place of what you should do right there? Like,
That's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough because like everyone's experience is different, right? Like what works for me is not going to work for necessarily everybody. But I will say that like a personal example. I was living in LA after New York. I was managing Key, Fat Man Key, and I was getting paid from 10 Deep because I was freelancing for them at the time, and it was a little bit of money. It was enough to pay the rent, or whatever, which was cool. But also I'm managing, so I needed some money to like kind of put into the business, or I just needed to be able to move around. And Johnny Shipe Cinematic Records comes to me like, yo, I want you to like consult or like do some marketing stuff for me. Like I'm building up the label, whatever. And I won't say he was trying to lowball me, but it was like a small amount of money he was trying to offer me, and I was just like, no, this is the price, and this is the only price that I could really do it for, type shit. And you just have to know as a creative like what your worth is, and just kind of evaluate like, is this situation one that I'm willing to lose? And most times the answer should be yes, because the opportunity wouldn't come to you in the first place if you weren't going to get more opportunities and the like. So I say that meaning like you have to like sit back and kind of take a bird's eye view. I was like, okay, if I'll tell them this is my price and I can only do it for this price, all they can say is no.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And if they have an issue or they get an attitude about it, and then it's just like, well, this probably wasn't meant to work.
Wasn't meant for you at all.
At all. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I had an experience like that, and with a clothing company out here in Atlanta, and I had a price, because I know that although it's like, hey, create 20 designs, but I like those 3. I'm gonna buy those 3. I still made the 20 designs. Right. So that took time on my day. That took focus. That took determination. That took like inspiration, searching, ideas, research, giving ideas that I may have wanted to use for another project. And so it was hard to, that was a hard decision. But I gotta stay on my price. I love to be here. I love to grow here. And this relationship means the world to me. But I think like, this where I know I belong and what I know I'm actually doing, like the labor. This is it. This is it. Yeah. And that's hard. It's hard to be like to believe in yourself. That's what you're doing. You believe in your faith. It's faith. It's blind belief.
Yeah, you can't pray and worry.
Yeah.
That's what my great grandfather
pick one, right?
say all the time. It's like you just can't. You gotta just actually have faith, because then that's not faith if you actually worried about the shit.
Right. So. Yeah, and that's the challenging one because,
Yeah, it's definitely easier said than done.
Yeah, because journey, so many people we meet in life, and I think that I can always get to a place. I've learned not to worry, from. I think I was a child because I just knew like my mom was going to work. She was 50, her 50s, and I just stress. If I worry, I'm gonna stress. I'm not going to school. I might get in a fight. Don't talk to me, because like I'm mad that she's going to work, and so I had to learn faith. Like she will always be safe with or without me. She got this. She knows. She's been doing it before I was here. Like I have to have faith, and then so now, as an adult, I use that. Like it's hard when I get worrisome. I pull myself out because I'm like, all is all. The cards gonna lay how they lay, and I can't. And if anything's supposed to happen, it'll be what it is.
Right.
And so I've always leaned more to the faith. But in life, we meet people that, lean on the worry, and sometimes it's hard to know, like, hey, is this the person I'm supposed to be around, the friend I'm supposed to be around, the whatever I'm supposed to be around? Because how do you communicate? Hey, you got to learn how to have some faith, because every time you say this, you create that. You create the opposite effect.
Powerful, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's challenging. That's one of the places I think it's continuous, but I'm learning in life the empathy to hear someone in their worry, in a place of worry. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna listen to this, or should I listen? Should you go ahead and you got to stay faithful out there? You got to, that dance right there is challenging. It's really like I have to have faith.
Right.
You know,
Period.
gotta have faith. Like this investment is for me. You know,
Right.
and so, that's how you become who you're supposed to be. I think those right there, those moments that really change you.
Yeah.
Because it's like someone might say, "No, I've been there. Don't do that," and then you go, "But let me keep doing it," and then you teach them like, "Oh, I didn't see that perspective before."
Right.
So you create a new path as well sometimes.
Yeah, there's one gift I think that all Black people are given, just from our ancestors, is this the very naturally strong intuition, that feeling in our gut that we feel when something isn't right. And the more that we listen and tune into that feeling, and we actually listen and kind of hear what the ancestors are trying to tell us, the more tapped in and the closer you will be to like what's yours, right? There's more alignment there when you're actually listening to your intuition. So most times when you feel like, damn, this is probably not the right thing I need to be doing, it's not the right thing you're supposed to be doing. And that's where faith also comes in at, is like you believe when you listen, you have to know that, all right, I made the right decision no matter what, right?
No matter what. Yeah.
That's just my intuition telling me this is the right or wrong thing to do, and I have faith in myself, right?
Yeah, because sometimes, when you are in tune with that gut feeling, it's present. You know it. You know, you're reminded of it. But sometimes it can be bombarded with anxiety and like fear of something as well, which can blind the intuition, because you're like, this fear and this anxiety makes me feel like I should pull away, when it's really like, I'm afraid because I know this is challenging and it is going to take a little extra. I think I've been in moments where, I know I pray to my ancestors and they guide me. Like I say, protected, guided, and guarded. And they went as far as like showing me, light sometimes. Sometimes I see a ball of light towards the path. Like if I'm like, oh, I'm done, I think I should be done with this, let me walk away. Something would like show me. I'm like, that is the most bizarre, but you know it. And you feel intense happiness, like,
right,
almost like your cheeks is raised, because it's like, I know this, I've been here, I know this thing. And so that's why I always stay connected to my ancestors, because I truly believe they walking in with my steps. And you got to get out your way sometimes, because sometimes you don't know. Because I think I experienced now in life the right decisions, because I've had so much experiences of neglecting my intuition. I'm not playing with that anymore.
Same.
And so now,
that's that wisdom.
Yeah, and now so I get a lot of anxiety now, maybe, or like fear of something. I'm like, oh, that's what comes with this.
Right.
So when you pray for rain, expect the mud, and then sit in that and say that's just what it is. Right. And it's hard. It's hard. I'm not gonna, that's the human perspective, but the overarching, whoever's watching me in this journey perspective, I can merge with that. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So,
Thanks.
here you are. I know we pivoted now from starting the company with Kim.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and now
we're in New York. And
you're in New York.
LA.
Let's do it.
So, I kind of left some things out, but I think a lot of people know, like, working in streetwear for a bit also helped.
Yeah, tell me about that's 10 Deep, right?
Yeah, 10 Deep.
I want to know about that, because that was one of my favorites. Like, that's what got me to start.
Low key, I think he's every streetwear designer's favorite designer. They'll just never give him that credit. They'll never say it out loud. Just from his patterns, his cut and sew has always been like, something I think streetwear designers look to. But that relationship with 10 Deep came about around 2011 or so. I was still working with Grip Plies. I was working with 2-9.
I remember Grip Plies. This years ago. I remember the name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was working with 2-9 and then Kei, because Kei left 2-9. But they were interested in shooting Grip as a model. And then in turn that kind of became like, the opening to our relationship, my introduction to them, my relationship with them, but that's way before I even worked with them. And then later on I went to work with them after Complex. So that Complex, I was just like, I want to do something more hands-on with artists and creatives. And so 10 Deep was like, why don't you come help us with special projects and marketing, which is essentially collaborations with musicians and other brands. And holiday parties, events, launch events, things like that. And I was like, hell yeah, I'll do it. And it wasn't much more money than I was making at Complex. It was just more in line with where I wanted to go.
Yeah, more kind of freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More freedom to move around and, you know, be able to, you know, see and touch the people because I like being outside in that way. And I like providing opportunities for people. So that job was cool because, you know, everybody want free shit, right? And then at the time, the brand was hot. Like, you know, all of the designs were dope.
Was it still 2010 around this time?
This is around 2011, 2012.
This is Spike is going crazy.
Yeah, it's going crazy at that moment. Yeah. Karma Loop was still around and like all of that shit.
These are all my inspirations. Karma Loop, this is like the things I'm like designing for, you know. Yeah.
And yeah, so I just so I went from being like the plug to get on Complex and the Fader to being the plug to get free stuff from 10 Deep.
Yeah.
And so I started sending out boxes to different people. So this was like when Thug started kind of popping up and Future, Rari, Drum. There's so many people that like when they would come to New York, they would just hit me, come by the office, and they'd leave with bags full of shit. And so a lot of that job is what kind of helped me get back on the music side of things in terms of like, you know, connecting directly with other managers and day-to-day people, road managers, and these are all relationships that I still have to this day. Of people that like even Barry, Jid reminded me the other day on Twitter that he had came by the office in Dumbo and got like stuff from me, and I didn't even remember that. I was like, oh shit, that's how I met you. Even though I had known Barry for years, like me and Barry have been in contact since he was the first person I made money with in music. But when he started working with Jid, you know, they was doing the press runs and doing all that stuff, and they pulled up at the office. So anyway, long story short, that job helped me to just like really get embedded on the music side of things, and people knew me as like the 10D person. We did a collab with Future. We talked about collabs with Chance the Rapper, and this is before they were like at their peaks too. Like I was getting a lot of artists early because I was in music so heavily.
And what's the quick side note? After Johnny Stripes put his offer out there, where did that end up?
Well, that was in 2000. I was later, so I kind of skipped around. Okay. That was like 2005, right when Key introduced me to 21 Savage.
2005?
No, I'm tripping. 2015.
Yeah, 2015. Cause I'm like, because Key. I was like, how old is Key? Because that's impressive. He was grinding that long.
Nah, that's 2015. And at the time, Key was like having his moment. Like he was working with Conan and Father, Awful Records. Drake was hitting him up for verses. Like he was really hot at the time. And 2015 going into 2016 is when I decided to move to LA because I was making enough money from Key. But I was like, yo, Scott, I want to just freelance, move to LA and kind of just start planting some seeds for you guys in LA. Because at the time the plan was to open a store in Brooklyn.
In 10 Deep?
A 10 Deep store. Not in Brooklyn, excuse me.
LA?
Yeah, no, it was in New York, but I think it was in Manhattan, like LAS.
Right.
So they wanted to start planting some seeds so people would know that the brand is growing and expanding.
Okay.
So I moved to LA, top of 2016. Had just met 21 Savage at the end of 2015 through Key. We brought him on like a holiday tour that we set up. It was like 5 or 6 dates. And yeah, that was kind of like the end of me working for somebody because once I started working with Savage, we put out a tape and he quickly took off. And then it was like,
quick
okay,
for 21,
I don't have time for 10 Deep stuff anymore.
Yeah, which is crazy. That's transition is wild because one, I gotta then, you know, on another date, pick your mind and more about 10 Deep and things they did to pollinate their brand in different parts of the.
That's a lot of the stuff you're doing now. There's the podcast, like more content.
Yeah.
You're getting your brand in stores like Urban Outfitters, like all those little things. May seem like you're not on the right track, but these are the things that like, niggas was doing the same thing. We were doing mixtapes, we were doing SoundCloud exclusives, we were doing all kinds of stuff to be embedded in the culture. You know?
Like a Spotify weekly playlist. Like then anything like, and then back to even creating a tour with Key. Just that concept right there. You know, I just want to speak to that because, you know, back to that starving artist, they're waiting for, hey, we like you, we're gonna put you on tour. But reality is
we set our own.
make
shit
your
up.
own tour.
Yeah.
You're like,
Well, at the time, I didn't know what a booking agent was for real. I'm gonna keep it a buck.
That's that on the ground level.
That's on the ground. Yeah. So like with Kei, I would say he's the first artist to make me like significant money. And then I started just learning more about the business and the industry. So I didn't know anything about a booking agent. I didn't know how to go about getting one or any of those things. Those things kind of came in the latter part of working with him.
Yeah.
Which led me to working with 21 Savage. Right.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, okay, we can have a person just book these things for us.
Yeah.
Bet.
Make it easier.
Yeah, but at the time, like, I knew some promoters in Florida and Ohio and Chicago. And I was like, yo, let's just do some dates and just line them all up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, smart. And then correct, because you created something out of nothing.
Yeah.
That's basically what we're doing. Because, I used to fill out a place when we first started because I put a college tour together. And, like, we ain't make it yet. So, but knowing is like, no, that is it. That is what you are doing. That's how you establish yourself. But looking outside in and sharing that with people is like, go make your own, tour dates. If you can't afford that store to do your pop-up store and rent a car, do it out the trunk pop-up in your favorite city, tell a story, like try ways to say, what am I really saying? What am I really doing? Because once that air quotes check comes, once that air quotes opportunity comes, will you be ready?
Right. Because that money don't mean nothing.
It doesn't. Yeah.
Really.
It can have you scrambled especially if you're independent, and here comes a check for some reason. You might not know where to put it.
You're gonna
be
know the right places or how to do it, what to do with it.
You might go get some food because you're like, I never ate like this before. That might be your first thing, or travel somewhere.
Right.
Like then you might
or
find out.
On yourself.
Yeah, and that might find out. Look, you didn't want to be creative. You wanted to make money.
Right.
It's such a balance in finding, like how you said, every day is a step towards something else. But to pivot back, here you are at 21. You're learning to. How's this incline going now?
So that was 2016, and then 2016 to 2019 was just like a fucking whirlwind. Like nigga, I never pictured a lot of those things. Never pictured being on a private jet, and never pictured winning a Grammy, because I never set out to do those things. I just was setting out to be helpful of people to make music. People I thought was dope, to get them from one place to the next. Like my favorite part of being in the business is seeing somebody go from 0 to 100. That's the only thing that's kept me in the business, is wanting to see people go from just a regular old everyday person to like a fucking megastar. Like 21 Savage couldn't walk in here right now and not get
a whole crowd behind them.
Fire.
Yeah, that's insane.
And that was why I was doing it. And so around 2017, Barry and Zeke come to me. They're managing JIT and Earth Gang, and they're like, "Yo, you're killing it. We're killing it. We should just team up and just start some shit. Start a label, and a management company." And I was like, "All right, cool, whatever." I didn't really put a whole lot of thought into it, which is a much longer conversation for later. But we set out to start this label, and Barry took it to Ethiopia at Motown, and she took a chance. We didn't have a label roster at all. We just had our management clients. Respectively, they had theirs and I had mine. And she was like, "Yeah, let's do it. I'll give you guys a joint venture, give you an opportunity to sign a bunch of artists, and do this, then the third, do the whole music thing, or the label thing, I should say." So that was in 2017 going into 2018, and then 2019 comes, and that was like probably the roughest year of my life, personally and professionally. Personally, just suffered a loss, and then professionally stopped working with Savage. So that was like the artist that kind of made me more recognized in the business, I should say, because people know me. People have known me for years, because the industry is very small. But he was the one that gave me a lot of credibility in working with him. And so it was like I lost all of these things all at one time. So it was like a storm. And then 2020 comes, and it's the pandemic. And I always have this inside joke. I try to keep it inside because it's not very funny. A lot of people lost people during the pandemic, but what I gained in the pandemic, I would have never had the time to get any other time. So I have this joke that God gave me a whole pandemic to get myself together, to heal, to get back on my feet, to get clarity, and to even want to be in music anymore. Because at some point I was like, I don't want to do this shit no more.
Right, I can see that.
To go from private jets and like 6 figures in my account every month. Like that shit was like never even a thought of my mind. And then to
that's
kind of
insane.
go backwards was like, oh fuck, I'm never doing this again.
Yeah.
Fuck this music shit.
Yeah, because you went up and then it went down. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I was like, fuck everything, everybody.
Yeah.
And so, but I had 2 years to kind of like, get my mental right, get tapped back in with myself, and understand who I was and my purpose and why I was here, and who I'm here to be engaging with, et cetera, et cetera. And then towards the end of last year, I was like, I got to go back on my own, doing my own company, my own label management and publishing company, because I was just very in a muddy place. And so sometimes you'll go through these moments to send you back, to send you forward. Like it's very much like a slingshot. That's what the last between 2018 to 2022, the 4 years. That's what the last 4 years have been for me. It's just like
slingshot.
Just going backwards to go forward. And the thing is about this time is like now I know, like with all of the wisdom that I've gained, all the experiences, all the lessons, this next propel is gonna be
the one that
it's gonna be crazier than what I've already experienced.
Yeah.
And I know that in my heart, and I have a lot of faith in that. Like even when times I'm like, ugh, this shit's hard again. This is not fun right now. I'm just like, nah, it'll be straight. Everything will be straight. Yeah,
and even it's so many. It's a lot you said, and to go into one at a time. It's like even that moment of not being in the music with 21 anymore in that way. I met a friend. Probably in 2020 or 2021. But she told me, she was like hanging out with me daily. Like, people I'm like, hey, this is, introducing her to, seeing how I operate, what I do, and da-da-da. And she's like, I just met this person. Just became a really good friend. But she asked me a question at the time. At this time I had a loss. Like, I lost something. I lost a part of me and, a place I had in life for a significant amount of time. And I lost it and regained myself. And I was in that process, have fell in love with myself because I had to rebuild myself. And in that, I also not only fell in love with myself, took myself out of my comfort zone of disregarding, I guess, my intuition, because I could tend to in the past judge people because I just know who I should and shouldn't be around. And so I do that sometimes. So I thought in this chapter of life, I was like, when I stop doing that? But maybe I should have kept that.
Right.
So she saw me in this light where I was kind of friendly with every and anybody, which I knew like some of these people I would not even, because I know it's something we don't relate on. But we'll get to that. We'll see what happens. And she just stopped me one day and was like, you're not being yourself. And I'm like, this girl doesn't know me. Yeah, she is like.
Sometimes that can feel like the most insulting shit ever, but then when you sit back, you're like, damn, she kind of like right a little bit.
Yeah, and
somebody said that to me. She was like, you don't know who the fuck you are.
Yeah, and it's like you can't see it. You can't see it. And when she told me that, I didn't get offended. I got like, I think you're right. I know I haven't been. And so I started listening to her perspective. I was like, no. And she just asked me who I am, and I'll tell her. She's like, the things you tell me from the things you do is the complete different. So, and then so on that journey, I got, once I merged with that.
She an empath or something?
No, I think she's like a really good friend. She's an empath, and I believe she's psychic. She don't believe it, but I'm like, things that
before they happen.
Yeah, and and I know that because I feel that, and so eventually, when I took her advice, I got my first time in my life, a spot I love. I'm still in today. My life just changed dramatically. I'm like with a person I really admire and appreciative of the journey she shares with me and watching her grow. And I'm more like in tune with family in different ways. Like it was such like once she helped me acknowledge that, she was like, write down what you actually want. It came, no kidding you, in about 2 to 3 weeks. It dramatically, I wrote it, the tiniest detail I wrote, I want a cat that greets me when I get home. My cat is literally that cat. Just the tiniest detail can tell you like all the other things I wrote down and how they came to be. And so, like sometimes those moments you need that so you can say, who are you? Like I know tour life on a jet, 6 figures, like you moving.
Bro,
You know what I'm saying?
moving.
Yeah, it's
Moving.
like you just going because it's nothing I'm doing is wrong. It can't be. I mean, I'm doing
Can't
the
be.
American dream.
Yeah, it can't
Like,
be wrong. I
yeah.
can't be a bad person. Look at what I'm doing.
Yeah,
And that's what I was clouded by that.
Yeah.
It's like the success of it all. And it's funny, the other day, Friday night, I was up like in the Chattanooga with a friend of mine.
I like
This woman
Chattanooga.
that I'm
Chattanooga's
dating.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and we were at this fire pit, and she was like, let's write down our fears and throw them in the fire.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the fears that I wrote down is like, I fear that for this next chapter of success that I'm going to forget again, that I can lose it all again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's one of the things, I don't want that to happen again. To get to that space of like being so like, oh, I'm good, everything's good. And forget that like, oh, all this shit can be gone.
Yeah.
Like that, you know what I'm saying? As soon as fast as you got it, it's just as quick as you can lose it, you know what I'm saying? And and not just the things, but yourself, right? That's what you're really losing when you get to that point of like just skating through life, not thinking about people or caring about people's feelings because you're getting money or this, that, and the third. You wearing this, that, third. You driving this, that, and the third. Like none of that shit even fucking matters.
Yeah.
And so somebody telling me like, oh, you don't know who you are. That for me, I was like, oh shit. All right.
Yeah.
And I had to like really go back inward and like get myself together. And that shit took a long time because, being quite honest, I could maybe possibly have been a narcissist at some point in my life. And to like wash all of that away, it takes a lot of work, and it's still not gone. I still have tendencies or certain characteristics.
Main character syndrome and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It come. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not fully gone, but like I needed 3 years just to get myself some clarity about myself,
Yeah, like I could attest to that too. Just I've always have been in those spaces of like, no, what I'm doing is the thing we all should be doing. Narcissism, and then realizing like, yo, no, it's just like it's just a dot. You know what I'm saying? Like people, and then learning empathy differently as well. Like listening to how people feel. That was to me. I got to a space after rebuilding myself that I thought I deserved to be happy every day. So when someone was like, let's talk and I'm like, no, I don't do all that. Like I stay high. I'm not going over there. And then I was like, that's not right. You know what I'm saying? That's not, I'm running. What am I running from? I should be able to do that anywhere. I should be able to go here, there, and there, and stay neutral the entire time and calm. And so, I'm still learning that. Some days I'm like, I gotta like chill, like this is too low for me. But then I'm like, no, this is not too low. Stop thinking low. Don't label it. Look at it like it's just how you said, I pray I don't like that. My decline doesn't affect me like that anymore. Because then you start to realize life is just happening for you, not to you. So you're just kind of sitting in it, and everything's kind of just you can be, and then you can observe
bad things that are happening for you for sure.
You can start to look, and then you just like, oh, that's cool. It's not as it's not shiny like it was. Yeah, but it's cool. Like and I think in those moments, that's when we gain, like you said, that slingshot, that ride when it's like, now I'm gonna be good because I have more groundedness in the things I achieve. So I'm just, and then now I know where I'm. Like my sister, she reminds me to live. She says you make sure your expenses are below your means, right? Yeah, I'm saying that. Yeah, like so, and I respect that.
Less than you make.
Yeah, and I'm always applied. That's so. Let's pull back. That's why I am who I am. What you said, old school. My sister Rashida. She just moved back to LA yesterday. I was sad, but she taught me that. Like and I'm thinking now, just listening to myself and what I'm saying. She taught me all those things because it goes back to that feeling. Out of all my sisters, I just felt something with her, and from there, she helped me with my business. It's just been a straight, like, we just work together really good, and it's not just as anything, business, or just as friends, family. And she taught me so much on these places, on how to reach these places. She's been in my life, like, almost spectating, like, and sometimes I couldn't hear it. Like, one time she's telling me, like, yo, this person you're around, no. Like, straight up, like, no, Latif. And I didn't listen. I had to see it for myself.
Right. I'm one of them too.
2 years
People
later.
tell me something every day, and I'd be like, no, I got to see for myself.
Yeah. 2 years later, I'm like, I wish I would have just, if I would have walked away right then, I wouldn't be seeing all this stuff. But, it's cool because I think that's what life is, though. It is the experience. So that's why we came here. That's why we're here. So I just love those people in my life, and they deserve a lot from me and just from this experience as well. Because I'm like, they gave me a lot, and just to have that place to listen, it changes you.
Facts.
Yeah.
Facts. But sometimes you could be so loud, be so much in your own way that you're not even hearing anything that you're supposed to be listening to.
Yeah.
You're so clouded just by what's going on in life or success or love, whatever the things may be.
Yeah,
it can be clouding your ability to hear.
Yeah.
To listen.
There's so many different lifestyles, so many things, lives you can live. The thing we talked about just now with, almost deconstructing a sense of narcissism or any of these mindsets. It's like some people, this is why they have, some traditions have ayahuasca ceremonies or mushroom ceremonies, because people, they understand, like, we are sponges. We're going to gain a lot of dirt throughout this life, but you don't want to lose yourself on that. You want to come back. And those ceremonies remind us to come back and remember why we're here. And, like, things like that. Like, I've been watching a lot of docs on that lately, and I just be like, it's so many different lives to live. Like, you can't just put one all in one basket and be like, oh, it's woe is me. Like, my life is, this is the only way I can be happy if I do like this, and it's just not working. It's like, no, man, you can find a way to do something completely different that you actually love more than this. And then you start to think of yourself not so big anymore. Like, so. Yeah. So, here we are. It's 2022. I want to jump into... The next thing I want to jump into is furniture, because that's the very last time, most, latest time I've seen you, and hearing your new journey. And, I don't know how long you've been working on furniture in the company you are. And I also want to know the name of it. What is it in its totality? Can you expound on those things a little more?
Yeah. So Second Bedroom is the name of the company. Something I kind of ideated on around 2019 when I was going through my rough patch, I should say, just in life, of not wanting to be in music anymore and kind of just wanted to do something for myself and be more tapped into my creative. Because, as a manager, we give so much of our creativity away, which, we've already talked about. A lot of that is my purpose. But sometimes you give so much away that you have none left for yourself. And so Second Bedroom came about just me wanting to do something that didn't depend on anybody else. Like, I didn't have to wait for a label. I didn't have to wait for a publicist or a booking agent or an artist to give me an approval. It's just something I could do. I could wake up and be like, all right, I want to put this online and sell it today or whatever. I can go pick this up in New Orleans and bring it back to Atlanta and sell it. So Second Bedroom essentially is like the longer tail version is like a space for makers, right? Creatives of all kind that just are obsessed with things design friendly or focused, mostly within the furniture and art space. And so I take furniture and flip it, but then I also provide platforms for young furniture designers, young local furniture designers to sell their pieces and get them in the right hands. But all in all, it's I just want to be a resource for people that want their crib fly, because how your home feels is how you feel most times. Especially for me, when my house is a mess, I feel like I'm all over the fucking place. I can't think. I can't do no work. Nothing's getting done. And my space is my solace. And curating that's an art form. That's an art in itself. So everyone that has a space to live in, they are creatives. They're being an artist. They're expressing themselves through what's in their home. And so for me, it's just having something that's kind of a hobby or a passion project that people can come to and get something for their crib or art piece, to come to me for art advice. I don't want to call myself a curator just yet, but there's things I want to do when I find the time to take a break from music to kind of expand the brand and get back into what the whole purpose of the brand is.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. Last time I walked into you had a pop-up shop,
Pop-up,
and
yeah.
just learned. I learned a lot. Just some of the designers you told me about from the furniture you had in there. Still have to go back and put my mind to it so I can start to acknowledge those designers and memorize their work and see the art form in furniture. Because honestly, I do as a designer, but I haven't. Sometimes I'm so excited to get into something, I hold off. Because I'm like, well, I know when I get over there, I know I'm going to love that. I'm going to love designing things yeah. So just seeing that already inspired me. But, to pivot and to close out, what is one word that, it could be a word or a phrase, that you live by, right now that you would like to share?
A phrase, I can't think of one word, but a phrase that I'd like to share that I'm living by currently is probably, I have everything that I need, I want for nothing. And that's just comes from a mind space of being present and not having to worry, not ever thinking that you need more, that everything that you need right in this moment, you have it already. You don't have to go out looking for it, you don't have to go seek it out in other people. That's a self-confidence thing. That's a self-love thing.
Yeah.
About being content.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. It's a great place to end off.
Sure.
Thank you, Kei, for being on here. It's an honor.
Boy.
Yeah, appreciate you.
My young boy.
Yeah, we have merged too, by the way, for everyone who's watching.
Shout out
It's
Merge.
a store out in Phipps Plaza, black owned, everything. Really nice, high-end designers from all over the world, and we're gonna end there. Without further ado, until next time.
Free wisdom.